Welcome back to Arise Exchange for this Thursday. Back to the budget standoff. As we mentioned, the next deadline we're speeding to is October 17th, when the nation hits the debt ceiling. That ceiling is entirely artificial. It's a number set by Congress, but it's also a big-sounding number of $16 trillion. If the U.S. doesn't either raise it or cut spending to offset it, the country technically could default. The head of the International Monetary Fund thinks that would be a bad idea.
The ongoing political uncertainty over the budget, over the debt ceiling, does not help. The government shutdown is bad enough, but failure to raise the debt ceiling would be far worse and could very seriously damage not only the US economy, but also the entire global economy.
Economist Richard Wolff, who is well known for his work on Marxian economics, is back on Arise to discuss this and other economic issues facing the country. Richard, welcome back to Exchange.
Thank you.
So let's start with this concept of the debt ceiling, especially for our international audience, which may be entirely foreign to this concept that we could theoretically run out of money. Of course, we can't run out of money. We own the printing presses. We can print as much as we want, but Congress has to authorize it. Walk us through a little bit about where we are and what that means.
Well, basically, the United States is a little bit unusual among countries in how it works its budget. Every year, the president and the Congress have to get together and decide how much money is going to come in with taxes and how much is going to be spent. And it doesn't take rocket science to understand that if they decide to spend more than they raise in taxes, the difference has to be borrowed. So every year they borrow when they spend more than they take in taxes. Because of the economic crisis since 2007, the government has been borrowing massive amounts of money, exceeding $1 trillion a year for most.
$85 billion a month or so.
Something like that, enormous. So when the Congress gets together and makes these decisions, everyone knows that that means they'll have to be borrowing. But here comes the peculiarity. In the United States, you'd think that would be the end of the story. They'd know, they'd make the plan. But you need a separate decision by Congress to authorize the borrowing that the budget they've already agreed to involves. Right. And then you can get this peculiar thing. They're agreed on spending and taxing, but the Republicans in this case refuse to allow the logical next step, which is to give the government the right to borrow more, because there's a ceiling, there's a limit of how much you can borrow, which the Congress then has to increase.
And about this time last year, they came up with the sequestration deal, a word that no one uses in the real world, to basically force mandatory spending cuts to get us past the first round of this debt ceiling. How has that worked out?
Well, I think the basic explanation is it has savagely impacted our economy. It has cut back on public schools, on public roads. The military has had to cut back and has complained about it. Across the board, you basically have said, we're cutting back. The government is the largest single spender in our economy. Right. Again, it doesn't take rocket science to understand if they cut back, fewer jobs, fewer goods.
And the sequestration wasn't, quote, intelligent cuts. There weren't a group of people making these decisions. It was just automatic
across the board.
So now, you know, if you read the news today, you're hearing that a default on the debt ceiling, on the debt, would be catastrophic to the economy. Do you agree?
If it lasts a long time, maybe. Mostly this is theater. This is political theater, the two parties pandering to their respective bases and trying to curry favor and hoping the country's irritation at all of this becomes blame on the other party.
That's right.
That's 90% of it. But if they actually continue and hold up each other, pandering to their political bases, then you could begin to see an already very fragile recovery, and I put that in quotes, become even less than that.
And you've been very critical of this recovery, that it is a stock market recovery, that it is benefiting just a few, that is not a broad-based recovery. And so if we go down this road, it could be worse for everybody.
That's right. The people at the top will not be doing as well, but the mass of people who keep waiting for the recovery that doesn't come are going to basically be told, you're not going to see it for an even longer time.
You've been very vocal about this. All of this leads us to think that the politicians are not really looking at the bigger economic issue. Whether or not, where you fall on the political spectrum on this, it seems that we are only looking at a few feet ahead of us through the fog.
Yes, and I think there's the greatest danger. We're not seeing a government grapple with an underlying economic problem that has lasted now for 6 years and threatens to go on. The message being sent to the rest of the world is the economy you thought was most secure and safe in the world isn't, and the political system sitting on top of that economy is stunningly incapable of dealing with these problems. You know, we've had a good ride for 50 years in which people around the world, governments, corporations, have put their money here, which has helped us.
Including China, by the way, which owns most of our debt.
That's right. But you're sending a message to all these people to think again. Maybe they put too much here. Maybe they better take some out because it's becoming risky.
Well, and maybe, Richard, that's going to start making the country force ourselves into making the tough decisions. Maybe there's some benefit here.
Maybe if people wake up, but I'm not holding my breath, because if they saw what's coming, they wouldn't have taken us down the road they've taken us with the shutdown, and they certainly would be not scaring the whole world, as Madame Lagarde said, by the implications of what it would mean if the biggest powerful country in the world cannot pay its debts or really cannot function in an efficient way.
Okay. Richard Wolff, thank you for coming by again. Your
Thank you very much.
Always very interesting. And see you soon. Well, Barclays has recently put in place a super casual Fridays. Super casual Fridays. Jeans, T-shirts, and even sneakers are acceptable now. According to people who work for the bank, the idea apparently is to make Barclays a better, cooler place to work. It's one of a number of initiatives the company is taking to make employees enjoy their workplace more. Sneakers doesn't do it, folks. Enjoying your workplace more. You got to do better. Coming up, is the U.S. heading towards energy independence? You're watching Arise Exchange.